And with that, it is our pleasure to welcome in not only the play-by-play voice of Sunday Night Football, but the host of NBC's coverage of the Olympics and the Kentucky Derby, which is this weekend on NBC. It is Mike Tirico. Mike, Craig here. So good to talk to you again, my friend. How are you?
I'm doing great, Craig. Don't scare me like that. It's next weekend.
It's next weekend. Oh, my God.
Don't scare you. Well, I said, oh, my God, for a second, too, when you said that. Like, wait a minute. I'm not ready yet.
Okay, next weekend.
Next weekend, draft this weekend, but all is good. It's good to be on with you.
Yeah, Mike, nothing exists for me beyond Thursday. You know how it is this time of year. I don't know anything that's happening in my entire life past Thursday. I think I have a flight home from Detroit on Friday. I think. Thursday, draft, first round.
Are you coming? You're coming here?
Oh, yeah. We'll be there on Thursday. So are you going to be there in Detroit? It's not too far for you. So nice home game for you?
It's a little bit. It's only like 45 minutes away from me. I actually I've done some work with the Detroit Sports Commission, which is the group. Many cities have them that you try to acquire the rights to host events like this, and I sit on one of their boards. So that's kind of my civic give back to my community.
Love that.
And we were in the conversations 7 years ago about getting the draft to Detroit. So to see the setup downtown is pretty cool. I think you'll have a nice scene. It looks okay for Thursday. So we're really looking forward to having not just the league, but the millions of people watch on TV to look at downtown Detroit, which it actually has had a couple of good runs in the spotlight here in 24. We had 2 primetime playoff games from here with the Lions this year, and then the NCAA Midwest Regional with Purdue coming through. So been a good sports start to the year here in Detroit.
No doubt. And I've heard from like NFL-type people that kind of the internal word in the NFL is Detroit's trying to do what Nashville did a couple years ago. Nashville is the draft that's been held up as like, oh, that was the one. That's the city that did it best. They were so welcoming. Obviously, hundreds of thousands of people attended. The scenes were incredible. Right. So can you, because there definitely are Commanders fans considering where they're picking. We're having you here on the show as a football expert and as, obviously we'll talk a little bit about the Olympics and the Kentucky Derby that you're hosting, but also as the host of the draft, Mike. You're now officially the host of the draft. Congratulations. What do we expect in Detroit, and what have you guys been working on up there?
Yeah, I think people will find a city that is one of the great stories of a turnaround. You're talking about the Commanders getting this thing turned around in the right direction, and it was a long time and a lot of self-inflicted wounds. There's a parallel with the city of Detroit. This go back for probably before many of the listeners were born, before I lived here. This is one of the thriving cities of America. The auto industry, obviously, their boom. And then the city went through a bunch of stuff, from race riots to crime to all that stuff. And then corruption and bankruptcy really put this city in a bad spot about 15 years ago. Good leadership, businesses coming downtown. Dan Gilbert, who owns the Cleveland Cavaliers, really is the key driver in getting business to come back downtown. And now you're going to find a downtown that's thriving, good restaurants, good bars. There'll be a bunch of places, if you are a Commanders fan and coming here, that you will enjoy. And it's Midwest hospitality. I grew up in the Northeast. I've called the Midwest home for 25 years, love both. But there's a warmth and a hospitality to the folks here. And I think everyone's going to find it when if they are coming out. And it's an easy trip. It's a direct flight or a drive for a bunch of people in the league. That's one of the reasons it's here. I don't think Detroit or any other city can pull off Nashville. I think Nashville's a one-of-a-kind place, and they've got a little bit of a setup that just works perfectly. But knowing what they have in store and looking at the stage build-out, it's a pretty cool scene. It'll be a lot of fun.
Yeah, can't wait to get there. Again, every pick of the NFL draft right here on the Team 980. I'll be there Thursday with the show, and it's going to be a good time. So, Mike, the kind of 2 football paths I wanted to go down with you are the Dan Quinn path and the JJ McCarthy path. Let's start off with Quinn. You've called so many of his games over the years. I'm sure, God, you're back when you were at ESPN, Monday Night Football, you probably would have talked to him, whether it's in Seattle. I don't think you were still with ESPN when he was in Atlanta as the head coach, but certainly since you've taken over as the play-by-play voice of Sunday Night Football, you'll tend to have the Cowboys a lot. So you've had production meetings and such with Dan. So when you think of like a Dan Quinn football player and how that might translate to this crop of quarterbacks, how do you think that those 2 pieces connect?
Yeah, I did have games with Dan in Atlanta and Seattle and obviously Dallas. I've spent a lot of time around Dan and got a chance to visit with Dan and his wife just briefly at the NFL annual meeting this past month in Florida. I'm a huge, huge Dan Quinn fan. I'm very happy for the league because you know how you're watching the NBA and having the Knicks in the playoffs just adds to the juice a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Having the Commanders be good adds to the NFL, in my opinion. And I think it's going to get him there. And Adam Peters. I like this combination. Let's start with Adam for a second. Just have the background in the Patriots' great era, early on in his career, and then San Francisco over the last several years with John Lynch. I think he's seen different ways to find success. So I love him in the front office. And Dan gets stuff done. Dan Quinn connects with players in a different way than a lot of people. You'll hear a lot about the brotherhood and all that. It's all real. It's all legit. It's what Dan does. It's how he does it. And I'm excited for this entire organization that Dan is going to be the guy to kind of do this rebuild. I think Ron Rivera saved a lot of uglier things that could have happened on the football field. The team on the field wasn't terrible. Ron did a good job with very limited things to make it better. I think Dan's going to be a perfect fit there in Washington.
And then how that translates to, this quarterback class, you've got, I think all the reports that I've heard are that, like, May's a great guy. Daniels, like, the work ethic has become legendary down at LSU. Obviously, JJ is just a supremely gifted young man. Yeah. It seems like all of them fit in various ways, which is why I have such a hard time, trying to tell fans, like, who I think it's going to be. I can make an argument for any of them. Do you have any kind of lean in just your relationship with Dan over the years and what you know about Adam and Cliff Kingsbury? Like, throw him in the mix. Do you have any lean on where you would predict just based off those tea leaves? Or if you have any information, Mike, please, go, by all means, spill away.
So I think I worked, 14 or 15 drafts at ESPN. I think I enjoy the draft more than ever right now because I don't have to get involved with the lying game. Everybody lies to everybody. Everybody holds their secret. Everybody's sure something's going to happen. It's really fun because people come up to say, "Hey, what do you think Team X is going to do at 9?" Like, I have no earthly idea. It's actually fun to watch the draft going that way. Okay, I know what they kind of need. I know what their fits are. To your question, though, when I looked at college football this year and looked at those quarterbacks, Jayden Daniels stuck out for me with what he was able to do. And I'll give you the background because most of the people who are chatting say, looks like Daniels from Washington. Here's what I can give you on Jayden. He played for Brian Kelly. I had the chance to be around Brian for almost 6 seasons in the Notre Dame games. Brian Kelly is hard on quarterbacks in a really good way. He has a way to raise them quicker. And I think that was the case with Jayden. And his skill set, his athletic ability, his ability to become the quarterback, lead, do all those things, that happened as he went from September all the way through the end of last season. So knowing that this guy played for Brian Kelly, I'd have a really good feeling that he's going to be able to perform to the pressure of the NFL and the system and in D.C. and all of that. I have a good feeling in watching Jayden and talking to Brian a couple of times via text during the year of how they thought of him down there. And I think it's kind of the way you'd think about a guy you'd want to be a franchise quarterback.
No doubt. Mike Tirico, play-by-play voice of Sunday Night Football, is with us here on the Hoffman Show. That's such a good point with Kelly and quarterbacks because it's something that I think a lot of us have brought up about McCarthy. And I'm going to, just for the audience, I'm clarifying. I'm going to ask Mike about McCarthy because I wanted to ask Mike about McCarthy, not because I'm trying to push JJ McCarthy to the Commanders, even though I like him a lot. Mike, it's been 3 months, 4 months of this. The fan base is ready. We're all ready for Thursday. But when we talk about that coach-quarterback connection, like one of the big lines on McCarthy is, well, hey, if you can play for Harbaugh, then you can play for anybody in the NFL because we obviously know that Jim is now back in the league. But being there in Ann Arbor, getting to know JJ, calling games, and kind of watching him grow over these last couple of years, how good do you think JJ McCarthy as an NFL quarterback can be?
Yeah, no doubt. JJ's a winner. You look at his record all the way through. He's won football games, won championships, led teams. You go back to the TCU game that they lost. That was a type of game Michigan had not played. We had to go up and down the field and score, and their defense couldn't stop anybody. That's a year plus ago, right? He was terrific. He kept them score for score in that game, which kind of shows you the dig deep he has. That's a guy who can dig deep and raise his level. I would say you didn't see from JJ McCarthy what you see from other quarterbacks in the NFL. What do I mean by that? Or in college football. Michigan ran the ball a lot, almost to the point where it had more of a pro offense feel than a collegiate offense feel. So the comp for McCarthy might be easier for the scouts and the coaches who do those things. They haven't seen McCarthy have to carry a team on his back. Daniels did because the LSU defense was so poor last year. May did because North Carolina's defense was poor. Williams did because, you got it, USC's defense was poor. So those guys up there at the top, they had to carry teams a lot. Michigan's defense was really, really good. Their whole team was really, really good. But I think if you watch JJ McCarthy, if you're an NFL guy, you've got a sense of how he operates. Intangibles, yes. Winner, yes. Got to meet him a few times. We had their first game last year on Peacock. Got a chance to meet with him, watch him practice, watch him at practice. I check all the boxes there. When you look at him next to Jayden Daniels, does he make the super athletic, great play that Daniels makes? Sometimes he can. I think you saw it more from Daniels than you saw it on a regular basis. So probably why the consensus of evaluations have Daniels ahead of McCarthy. If you told me that we had to get a quarterback out of this draft, we're going to invest in JJ McCarthy, I'd feel okay about it. Now, would I feel better as you came down to 7, 8, 9, 10, 11? Yeah, I would. I don't know if I'd feel great about it if it was 1 or 2 compared to Williams and Daniels, but I'd feel really good about a guy who I think can be my quarterback as I let him grow into the position for a while.
Last draft-related question for you. There's so many other Michigan guys in this draft. Two that I think are really interesting for Washington purposes are Mike Sanders, still the corner, and Junior Colson, the linebacker, second and probably third or fourth round, respectively. Any real file on either of those guys that you can remember? Because I think that game was week 1 that you called for them, because it was early in the highlight tape. As I was watching McCarthy, I was like, oh, that's Mike's on this game. So anything you remember specifically from those two guys as you prepare for that one?
So 3 years ago, I guess it is now, I was on a show in Cleveland, and I told those guys, Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, who I had seen at Notre Dame, I think he's guaranteed to be a really good NFL player. Not know that there was a medical issue, a little bit. Took him. He's been pretty good with the Browns.
Yeah.
Say that his background, that I don't get that feeling on guys very often, unless I've seen them play, to talk to them, watch them. He's still one of those guys. Never gets Mikey. That's what everybody called him all year. The sense that he's going to be a starting nickel for the year. He intelligent, and that's for the ball is that football term that gets abused. The ball usually happens when guys have great football intelligence, study the game, athleticism to get them where they need to be at those moments. Every time I watch Michigan play, he's right around the ball. I think that guy can be a really good NFL player. Junior Colson, yes, I'm right there with you. I just have a feeling that Sanderson's going to come in right away and be a good fit. I also think Blake Corum is going to be back who can last in the league for years. Running backs are valued, obviously, as we know, but Tim might get a guy who can be one of your 2 backs in the rotation for the upcoming season.
Mike Tirico is with us. Coming up in 2 weeks, Mike, the 150th Kentucky Derby on NBC. 2:30 is the coverage. And, of course, this summer he'll host primetime coverage of the Paris Olympics on NBC and Peacock. And, Mike, I will actually be in Paris as well. My wife and I are going as fans. So who knows if I run into you on the streets of Paris somewhere. What's been your favorite part of preparing for these Olympic Games? I know you spend so much time doing it around the football, around things like the Derby that you now are hosting every year, but the Olympics are such a unique beast to prepare for. What's been your favorite part about preparing for Paris this summer?
Olympics are, 2.5 weeks every 2 years, the winter and the summer games. The other half weeks of the years, those 2 years, something Olympic going on. It always feels like there's a feature or a meeting or a world championship somewhere that you need to watch, or an opportunity to be around some of the athletes. So it's a constant round paper, if you will, of a professional life. And I've come to love it, the job now, the last 7 years in the big. This Olympics has a chance to be really cool. I was just in Paris a week to do some stuff because we're 100 days out. Now it's 5 days, I guess it is. Chance to do some visiting of the venues, get around the city, see what it's going to be like. I think it's going to be a great Olympics. The last 3 have been in Asia, Korea, Japan, and China. The last 2, COVID, limited to no fans. So, the energy of the Olympics has been muted. This is all about passion, energy, beauty, and I think we're going to have a good setting. Here's the one thing I think is really cool, one of the many. They're going to use some of the iconic spots in Paris games. For example, beach volleyball could be in a temporary stadium on trucked-in sand, the Eiffel Tower. A chance to watch them as they're putting up the stadium is about 2/3 done right now. It's going to look so dang cool. Matches with the Eiffel Tower behind you and, beach volleyball going on. It's going to be a treat. They've got that in different spots around the country. So I think it's going to be a great Olympic Games, and we are certainly excited. The good news for the viewers, it's going to be live. So even though there's a 6-hour time difference, the final is run at 3:30 DC time, live on NBC4. We're going to have live coverage of all those events, and then in prime time, special treatment as we broadcast the big events of the day with some behind-the-scenes stuff around it, so you get to see more of the stuff we can't show you when we're live for everything.
Oh, that's really cool. And I love what Paris is doing, as you mentioned, using the city. For instance, hey, let's have the marathon course. Start in Paris, run to Versailles, come back. Where else can you do that? Nowhere. Only in Paris. So it's going to be a lot of fun to watch. Of course, the 150th Kentucky Derby is up first for Mike. That is Saturday, May 4th at 2:30 on NBC. Of course, the NFL Draft in Mike's home city of Detroit, or relative home city of Detroit, this Thursday. Mike, appreciate your perspective and time as always, sir. Hopefully I'll run into you, whether it's in Detroit or Paris, a sentence I've never said before, but hopefully I'll see you somewhere around.
Then it would be Detroit. The grid was modeled after Paris. There's always a connection. And safe travels here, and the folks who are coming here, we hope you have a good time. The city is ready to roll out the red carpet for everyone, and I think you'll have a good time. So safe travels and enjoy the draft.
All right, thanks, Mike. That is Mike Tirico with us here on The Hoffman Show.